Hey there YouTube, Wrestling Optimus here. It's the start of another week, which means it's time for Monday Night Raw on USA. As always, if you're new here, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more pro wrestling and action figure content. We're headed into the Thunderdome! So for a review, let's take it over to the action figures. At one point in the night, there was a Kit Kat commercial starring R-Truth and Liv Morgan. I only bring it up because coincidentally, those are the two new figures I got this weekend. This week, Samoa Joe has been replaced on commentary by Dolph Ziggler. Interesting choice. Raw opens with the WWE Champion Drew McIntyre. He's back from his kayfabe fractured jaw, but warns that one big hit could cause more serious damage. Still, he says he'd rather leave every night in an ambulance than give up his title. Speaking of which, since that vehicle has been so integral to this feud, Drew challenges Randy to an ambulance match at Clash of Champions. McIntyre mocks Randy's photoshopped picture of his hospitalized victims by showing his own similar photoshopped picture of all the victims he's laid out with the Claymore, including Ziggler, who stays awkwardly silent from the commentary desk. Adam Pearce interrupts and says Randy might not make it to the pay-per-view. So if Keith Lee can beat Drew tonight in a non-title match, he'll be Drew's next opponent at Clash of Champions with the title on the line. McIntyre asks the question we've all been wondering the past few weeks: who the hell put Adam Pearce in charge anyway? I knew they were going to do this, just like they suddenly started having shark cage matches when the shark cage playset wasn't selling. Now they're involving ambulances every chance they get because I guess the Wreckin' Ambulance set isn't selling. Maybe it'd sell better if it wasn't $40. Ugh, the point is, I guess I have to go buy that now. Here come the Raw Tag Team Champions under their usual shower of solo cups. They're taking on the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura, who are still mad about their Champions Lounge getting destroyed on SmackDown. Pre-match, I'm pretty sure Shinsuke says, if they want the smoke, they're going to get cancer. Cesaro starts off aggressive with an uppercut at the bell. The heels get some heat powerbombing Montez Ford into the barricades. Then Angelo Dawkins cleans house on the hot tag, delivering a nasty spinebuster to Shinsuke. Later on, Cesaro does a swing on Montez into a Nakamura knee strike for an amazing double team maneuver. But when the Swiss Cyborg sets up for a superplex, Dawkins gets the blind tag and hits the cash out on him for the victory. Dolph antagonizes Cesaro from the desk for getting cocky and costing his team the match. Angel Garza is flirting with Lana backstage for some reason. She's complaining about Mickie James getting a title shot over Natalya. Zelina Vega comes in and shoos her away. Zelina yells at Angel for his devil-may-care attitude, especially with their luck lately. Garza points out that Andrade was the one who got pinned last week. They argue in Spanish. Vega storms off as they start fighting. The Hurt Business, dressed in fancy suits, accompany their newest member, Cedric Alexander, to the ring. Cedric says his social media has been blowing up since last week, blaming him for abandoning his friends. But this is a job. He's here to make money, not friends. Besides, their friendship only left him empty and broken. Ricochet and Apollo Crews come out. Apollo says Cedric allowed himself to be manipulated by MVP. But Alexander asks how many beatings he took for Apollo's United States title, and Crews has no answer. Ricochet says Cedric was his brother, and his betrayal hurts more than anything the Hurt Business ever did. So if Alexander thought those beatings were bad, Ricochet and Apollo are coming for him now. This leads to a singles match between Cedric and Ricochet. Early on, things spill to the outside where Apollo attacks Shelton Benjamin, and Eric of the Viking Raiders runs out to attack Bobby Lashley. They brawl back into the ring where things settle down. Ricochet misses a 450 splash, which Cedric counters into a Michinoku driver. Then, Ricochet does one of the best sell jobs I've ever seen for the lumbar check, literally flipping in the air from the impact. Cedric Alexander is your winner and celebrates with the Hurt Business in the ring. Suddenly, the Thunderdome screens go blank and the lights turn off. The word Retribution displays around the arena as a group of hooded figures appear on the Tron. A female, likely Mercedes Martinez, says they are the product of empty promises, lies, greed, and betrayal. A male, obviously Dominic Dijakovic, says, when you show loyalty to an entity that casts people aside like garbage, you become garbage. When you sell your soul to a corrupt machine, you become corrupt. He explains that they believed their time at the Performance Center would bring them fame and wealth, but since it didn't, apparently they're going to gut our reality, because they are Retribution. Even more shadowy figures join them on screen. Back in the arena, the Hurt Business prepares for an attack, but nothing happens. Mickie James is giving a stereotypical babyface interview in the backstage ring. She understands that tonight might be her last chance for one final championship run. The Hurt Business comes across Adam Pearce scolding his security guards. MVP says these attacks could cost Adam his job. He suggests the Hurt Business take over since, unlike the rest of the locker room, they aren't scared of Retribution. Pearce agrees, only to find out they aren't free and he'll be receiving a bill for their services. Next, Asuka defends the Raw Women's Championship against Mickie James. Mickie has an unusually cocky attitude that borders on heelish and doesn't really make sense considering she's not the champ. Towards the end, they exchange submission holds. Mickie tries to awkwardly reverse Asuka's armbar, then out of nowhere the ref calls for the bell. Everyone, including the wrestlers and commentary, seem confused. The ring announcer declares Asuka the winner because Mickie, quote, can no longer compete. I'm confused. Even more confusing, Zelina Vega comes out next. She's been thinking, and she's wasted some of the best years of her career on Andrade and Angel Garza. So if Asuka wants to hand out title shots, how about instead of giving them to superstars of yesterday, she try giving one of the stars of today a chance? Vega is not only ready for Asuka, she's ready for that title. Before Asuka can even respond, Zelina slaps her across the face and leaves. Well, I guess if Zelina Vega is getting more involved in the women's division as a competitor, I'm under even more pressure to find the battle pack of her and Andrade. I've been eyeing that up for a while now anyway, since the Andrade is so much better than mine and comes with his La Sombra mask. Charlie Caruso interviews Keith Lee in the backstage ring. Keith says he's known Drew for a long time, and they knew one day they'd have to face each other. Charlie asks if he'll take advantage of Drew's injured jaw. He says he doesn't want to hurt his friend, but when it comes to the WWE Championship, he'll do what he must. In a match referenced earlier, Bobby Lashley takes on Eric of the Viking Raiders. MVP joins commentary where he remains for the rest of the night. He elaborates on the roles of each member of the Hurt Business. It's a very quick match as Bobby wins with the full Nelson, apparently renamed the Hurt Lock. The Viking Raiders figures are pretty expensive right now, but I do want them as soon as I can afford them. Unfortunately, Ivar's injury may have delayed those plans. Meanwhile, as I've stated before, the entire Hurt Business, minus Cedric, is on the list of Optimus, so I won't be getting them anytime soon. Backstage, Kevin Owens is asked why Aleister Black has been attacking him. He says he doesn't know. Maybe Hot Topic wouldn't honor the 40% off coupon for the screaming band he likes. Or maybe it's the fact that he's sat in a room for a year and a half asking for a fight and no one cared enough to take him up on it. Tonight, KO is only concerned about hurting Aleister so bad that he runs back to that room. Braun Strowman approaches the infamous smoking door to Raw Underground. He's pissed and looking to take out some aggression. It's so weird seeing him dwarfed by the bouncer. It's also weird that arguably the most consistent thing on Raw right now is that no one is allowed to enter Raw Underground under their own power. Someone else must always open that door for you. Accordingly, Shane opens the door and lets Braun in. Seth Rollins and Murphy are in the locker room ahead of Seth's steel cage match against Dominic Mysterio. Murphy is still apologetic, but Seth reassures him that the beating he took from the Mysterios last week was atonement enough. It's all in the past. It's all fine now, because tonight is Seth's opportunity to teach Dominic a lesson. However, he does have a very important job for Murphy. Seth slaps him across the face and jacks him up against a locker. Intensely, he tells Murphy that his job is to stay out of this match tonight so there are no more mistakes. Before the match, Ray says once his son is locked inside that cage, there's nothing he or his family can do to help. As we'll see, that's a complete lie. Dominic comes to the ring accompanied by his family. He gives himself the sign of the cross and looks terrified, just like a rookie should when he's about to enter his first steel cage. I'm still amazed how fluid he looks in the ring for being so inexperienced. He has the advantage until Murphy pops up and hands Rollins a kendo stick. seemingly contradicting Seth's orders from minutes earlier. He wails on Dominic, seemingly through a commercial break. Then Ray does the same thing, handing Dominic a kendo stick so Seth can have a taste. Ray opens the cage door and Dominic goes to leave, but Murphy stops him. He beats up Ray and slams the door shut, but Seth knocks Dom away and gets hit instead. Another mistake by Murphy. Dominic tries to escape over the top, so Murphy goes up to stop him. He's knocked to the ground, but instead of simply climbing out and winning, Dominic turns around and frog splashes Seth. This would have been fine if he won, but it only gets a 2 count. I hate dumb baby faces. Dominic tries to escape over the top again, but this time Seth catches him and superplexes Dom off the top of the cage, following it up as always with the Falcon Arrow. Somehow, that only gets a 2 count as well. Rollins manages to hit 2 stomps right in front of the Mysterios and gets the pin. Seth mocks their family as he steps out of the cage and gives Murphy a death glare. He embraces Murphy and whispers, "For the greater good," before throwing him into the barricades and the wall of the cage. As he heads up the ramp, he turns to Ray's wife, Angie, and says, "Hell of a job you did. Hope she turns out better," pointing to Aaliyah. They go to check on Dominic, and interestingly, Aaliyah stops to check on Murphy. We take our first trip to Raw Underground, and I guess that's where Dolph went because he's taking on some jobber. Riddick Moss challenges him. Ziggler gets a nice sucker punch in, but Moss counters with a big slam. They're eventually broken up by Braun, who easily dismantles both of them. As stated before, Dolph Ziggler is on the list of Optimus because I hate him, and obviously Riddick Moss doesn't have a figure yet. Even though once again Shane said we'd come right back to Raw Underground, instead we're back in the interview ring with Drew McIntyre this time. He's confused why Keith is upset with him for interfering last week. After all, Randy had just hit the RKO, and he's not saying Keith wouldn't have kicked out, but in walks Lee. He doesn't appreciate Drew's insinuations. Last he checked, in the only match they've finished, he beat Orton. Tonight, he plans to beat McIntyre, and then, again, for the WWE title at Clash of Champions. He goes to put his hand on Drew's shoulder, but after 3 warnings, gets punched in the throat for the audacity of laying a hand on the champion. They brawl through the backstage area until officials break them up. I'm really big on language, and Keith Lee's quiet tone, combined with his superb word choice and eloquent diction, all delivered in that velvety baritone, is absolutely mwah! Back at Raw Underground, Titus O'Neil demands to be let in, so, keeping with tradition, the door is opened for him. Braun finishes another jobber when Riddick Moss asks for seconds. He's thrown into the crowd. Here comes Titus with a takedown, but he gets choked out and pummeled by the monster among men. A still one-eyed Aleister Black ambushes Kevin Owens during his entrance, then manages to lose his eye covering. Owens fights back as Aleister focuses on the knee. KO hits a super kick, but he can barely stand. Suddenly, the lights flicker. It distracts Aleister, and KO hits the stunner for the win. MVP complains, but Michael Cole correctly points out the Hurt Business was hired as security, so maybe they should go do something about it. Keith Lee attacks Drew McIntyre again backstage. Adam Pearce breaks it up and threatens to cancel both tonight's match and the match at Clash of Champions. Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler are on commentary as the Riot Squad take on Natalya and Lana. Before the match, Liv and Ruby say they're a real team. They proved it by beating Shayna last week, and at Clash of Champions, they're going to take the women's tag team titles. Natalya and Lana get a few shots in on Liv before Ruby gets the hot tag, they hit their double team on Lana, and pick up the quick victory. The champs antagonize both teams throughout the match, then beat up Natalya afterwards and put Lana through the commentary desk. Braun is still pummeling jobbers in Raw Underground. Riddick Moss wants thirds and is joined by Dolph Ziggler this time. It doesn't make a difference though, as Braun ragdolls them both around the ring. Then, Dabba-Kato steps up. But since this is the only thing people actually might want to see out of Raw Underground, Shane stops it immediately and books it for next week. In our main event, Keith Lee takes on Drew McIntyre. Keith immediately starts targeting Drew's jaw with kicks and punches. It's a classic big man battle with lots of big moves, including a superplex on McIntyre. Just as the drama is building, in storms Retribution. I count at least a dozen of them. They quickly overwhelm Keith and Drew and beat down both men for an uncomfortably long amount of time until finally the Hurt Business comes out. Despite being outnumbered 3-1, they put up a good fight. Keith and Drew hit stereo flipping planchas that flatten everyone and stare each other down to close the show. I think this was a better episode than recent weeks, but it's still not on par with SmackDown, let alone Dynamite. I find Randy Orton boring, so I'm actually glad he's off TV. Plus, I'm much more invested in Drew vs. Keith anyway. The tag team division continues to tread water, but the women's division is showing some signs of life. I'm intrigued by the introduction of Zelina Vega, and I like the reunited Riot Squad playing David to Shayna and Nia's Goliath. Everything with the Hurt Business continues to bore me, but the implosion of Seth Rollins is getting good, as long as he moves away from the Mysterios very soon. Raw Underground finally has something resembling a storyline, and hopefully next week's fight between Braun and Dabba-Kato will be worthwhile. So, all in all, not the worst 3 hours I've ever spent. Well, that'll do it for Monday Night Raw. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. I'll be back tomorrow with my AEW Dark reactions, and then again on Thursday with an action figure review of Dynamite. As always, if you found me and enjoy my content, make sure to do all the normal YouTube stuff. Smash that like button, share with any wrestling or action figure fans you may know, subscribe to the channel, and spread the word. You can also talk to me over on Twitter at PSUOptimus, or see all my best figure photography on Instagram at WrestlingOptimus. If you haven't watched my review of SmackDown yet, you can check that out right here. But until next time, I've been Wrestling Optimus, and I'll catch you later.